Welcome. Today, you're going to hear two stories about the Seeker, a terrifying demon that likes to play a twisted game of hide and seek while hunting for its prey. If you enjoy today's stories, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Now, time for our first story. The phone buzzed on the nightstand, a single, insistent vibration in the oppressive silence. Sarah was already jittery after a night of ghost stories at Emily's. She fumbled for it, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. It was a text. An unknown number. Remember the game, Sarah? Midnight hide and seek starts now. A cold sweat prickled her skin. The game was a childhood legend, a whispered dare passed down through generations of their small town. If you received a text at midnight, a malevolent entity named the Seeker would hunt you until dawn. Ridiculous, of course, or so she'd always thought. Another text. Don't hide. It makes it less fun. Panic clawed at her throat. Sarah considered calling Emily, but the silence of the house, punctuated only by the rhythmic creak of the old floorboards, was suffocating. Grabbing her flashlight, she crept downstairs. Every shadow a potential hiding place for the Seeker. The basement door hung ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. Stupid horror movies, she thought, forcing herself down the rickety stairs. The air grew thick and stale, the bulb dangling from the exposed wires, casting flickering shadows. A musty smell, like long dead earth, filled her nostrils. A metallic clang echoed from the back corner. Sarah whirled the flashlight beam. A rusted swing set. The chains swaying gently despite the lack of breeze. Had it been there before? A whisper, cold and raspy, slithered through the room. "I've found you." Sarah screamed, scrambling back, the flashlight slipping from her grasp. Darkness engulfed her, suffocating, absolute. Panic turned to primal terror. She had to get out. Blindly, she stumbled towards the stairs, the floorboards groaning in protest. Then, a hand clamped over her mouth, stifling her scream. It was cold, impossibly cold, and felt nothing like she'd ever touched. Clawing nails dug into her arm, pinning her against a rough brick wall. A voice, a guttural rasp that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once, whispered in her ear, "You shouldn't have played, Sarah." Tears streamed down her face. hot against the icy touch. In the darkness, she imagined eyes, glowing red embers in the gloom, fixated on her with a hunger that sent shivers down her spine. A soft, wet chuckle tickled her ear. Ready or not, here I come. The silence that followed was worse. It stretched into an eternity, punctuated only by the ragged gasps of her own terrified breaths. Dawn seemed a lifetime away. The question echoed in the emptiness, a horrifying realization settling in her stomach. Was this just a twisted prank? Or had she unwittingly invited a nightmare into her world? A nightmare with a cold grip and a hunger for something far more terrifying than just a game. And now it's time for our second encounter with the Seeker. The Seeker was a legend, known to all, but very rarely spoken of within town. The legend states that some ancient creature doomed to roam the earth for eternity would hunt the chosen. They get a text message at midnight, and from then on, they have until dawn to hide. Should the Seeker find them before daybreak, they would vanish without a trace. These were always nothing but stories for Sarah, mere urban legend, tales to scare children. That was until one cold winter night. She was studying late. Her phone buzzed. She saw the time, and it was midnight. She felt a chill running up her spine as she picked up her phone, and there it was. The message. You have been chosen. Hide until dawn, or the Seeker shall find you. Her blood ran cold. No way, she thought. It had to be some kind of prank. Then she heard it. A knock at her front door. So far away, echoing. She turned around, her heart pounding, as another knock came. This time, way louder, echoing through the silent house. The rational part of her mind said he was pulling her leg, but some other, deeper fear took firm hold. She grabbed her phone and shot upstairs into the attic, pulling down the ladder and climbing up to pull the ladder up behind her and close the hatch. The attic was dark and full of dust. The second-hand furniture was mad with memories that seemed long forgotten. She crouched down behind a pile of cardboard boxes, trying to still her ragged breathing. She checked her phone. 12:10 in the morning. The night stretched out in front of her like an endless, terrifying yawn. The knocking became pounding, and with every thud, it seemed the walls of her house were shaking. Sarah covered her ears as tears streamed down her face. Then the pounding stopped. Silence. Briefly, she thought that this nightmare was finally over. Her phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen. Her heart sank reading the message. "I know where you are." She began to feel cold sweat. Now, the footsteps were slow and deliberate, which were moving around through the house. The floorboards creaked under the weight of something heavy, something inhuman. She felt its breath, the low, guttural whisper, but barely perceived as sound. Footsteps reached the bottom of the attic. Sarah was holding her breath, hoping that it wouldn't find the hatch. But it seemed the Seeker wasn't so easily defeated. The groaning of the opening of the ladder came, and Sarah smothered a scream, shaking all over. She needed to find a new place to hide. To the far corner of the attic she crawled, as silently as possible, and slipped behind an old wardrobe. She listened for the Seeker climbing up, rung by slow rung. Its breathing was getting closer, seeming to fill the little space with an unnatural sound. The minutes seemed like hours as she crouched there in the dark, shaking, while the Seeker swept inch by inch, nearer and nearer, into every nook, every cranny, into every shadow. It was only a question of time. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't dare look at it. She could guess that it would be from the Seeker. The footsteps ceased, and she could feel it standing on the other side of the wardrobe, breathing. She locked her eyes tight, tears streaming down her face, in a silent prayer for the arrival of daybreak. Her wardrobe creaked as it was pushed to the side, her heart pounding against her chest. Sarah held her breath. She could feel its breathing on her neck. She could feel the air growing cold. She didn't dare move, didn't dare to breathe, as it was so close to her. She could feel its touch. That's when she heard the first chirping of the birds. It was dawn. Thereupon, the first rays of light pierced through the tiny attic window. The Seeker spat, frustrated and enraged. At that moment, hope surged in Sarah. Maybe, after all, she would live through the night. Yet the Seeker didn't retreat. Worse, it fueled itself with its anger as the shadows danced around it. In one sweeping movement, it launched at her, wrapping its cold, clawed hand around her throat. A scream that came from Sarah was cut off with the tightening as her vision filled with blackness. The last thing Sarah saw were the eyes of the seeker. They gleamed with a malevolent hunger, and then everything was black. The next morning, her boyfriend entered the house of Sarah to find the attic door ajar. Her dead body lay in the corner, with her eyes open in horror. Her phone lying beside her, with the last message saying, "You cannot escape the seeker." Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from the narrator.